Welcome into another episode with Tapped in Sports. I'm pleased to have San Francisco Giants beat writer Kerry Crowley join my podcast. Just like the players, it has been an adjustment period for yourself. So, what have you been up to, Kerry?
Well, thanks for having me. First off, Leo, I'm really excited to join you. We've spent a lot of time conversing over the past few
Right.
years, and I really like what you've got going here with the YouTube channel and the podcast. So it's a pleasure to join you. And yeah, it certainly has been an adjustment for me. I came back from spring training on March 16th with a totally uncertain future, and within probably an hour of getting off my flight from Arizona, my boss called me and was like, "Hey, you're joining the breaking news desk, and you'll be recording about or reporting about the coronavirus." And
Wow.
so having very little background in health, but having a journalism degree, did give me at least a head start because I wasn't solely focused on sports journalism in college. So I
Right.
jumped right in and was immediately covering the coronavirus for 5 weeks. And then
Wow.
unfortunately, our paper had to make some salary cuts. So I and the rest of the sports department have been furloughed, and I spent the last 2 weeks on furlough, and I've got 2 more weeks on furlough. So I hope to come back ready to go May 26th, right after Memorial Day. And I hope to be reporting both about sports and about public health because I think that those two things will be intersecting for quite some time here.
Right. Absolutely. These things are going to, with everything that's going on in the health world and sports world, especially this year, those are going to be two things that we're going to talk about 5 years, 10 years from now, even
Oh, yeah.
if there is a baseball season, which I would assume we'll get into that later, it's always going to be linked to whoever wins the World Series this year.
Yeah.
And as far as you were just speaking on this yourself, MLB suspended spring training and delayed the opening day exactly 2 months ago from today. And what was the feeling like or the discussions going around? Did anyone assume that we would be without baseball for this long?
Down in spring training, it was interesting because I don't think up until about May 10th, 11th, 12th, or March 10th, 11th, or 12th, excuse me, that anyone really had any sort of a grasp of the situation. We thought, okay, opening day probably won't happen, but I guess this could be pushed back 2 weeks, or maybe the first month of the season will be cut off, but you just pick up the schedule where you
Right.
are. But if you asked us down in spring training, and I think I can speak for every reporter down there and the players, coaches, training staff as well, if the season would be delayed until at least July, I don't think anyone would have guessed that at that point. That certainly seemed like an extreme. We thought that uh, I guess everyone would be better prepared for something like this, but yeah, it certainly was underestimated when we were there. I think that that's the best word I would use to describe the situation.
Right. Yeah, and I didn't expect that myself. This year, out of all years, is the first year I decided to be a season ticket member
Oh,
holder. And so once that came out, I was just waiting for an email. If people don't know, I stay here in San Diego, California. Love having a season ticket holders because I get to see all my Giants play, and the games I don't go to, I get to basically sell off and make my money back.
yeah.
So that being said, I was like, okay, 2 weeks delayed opening day. All right, that's fine. I don't mind delaying that. But being this long without baseball, I'm the guy now to where it's like, hey, if it's without fans, let's just get things going. I want to see baseball. Seeing everything on Netflix now, and let's just get the ball rolling with sports.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah, the health does come first, though. But
mm,
certainly,
yeah,
okay.
absolutely. I think that I'm right there with you. And there's been so many people saying, like, sports reporters are actively rooting against sports. And I can tell you that that is definitely not the case because so many people that I know, including myself, have been furloughed or have lost their jobs, unfortunately, who rely on this. We want this to come back, but at the same time, we love our parents. We love our aunts and
Yeah.
uncles. We love our grandparents. We want them to be able to live. And I think that, any solution where sports comes back, we have to be able to be sure that we're protecting our loved ones and we're protecting everyone who's out and about in society. And this is just flip things upside down. And so I just kind of, I don't know, dismiss the people who say, oh, people are actively rooting against sports. No one is actively rooting against sports. I think that however you felt before this, you certainly feel after this. You just want everything to be safe.
Exactly. And that's definitely well said. Nobody is rooting against sports. I haven't heard anyone that I know root against sports and want this to be delayed any further. Just even beyond the sports world, being able to go to the mall
Yeah,
and enjoy our daily lives would just be awesome in a nutshell.
yeah,
So
absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
before everything took place, I know there was a couple of guys on the San Francisco Giants that were looking really solid this spring. Is there one or two players that I know we're talking about 2 months ago, but is
Mhm.
there one or two players that still stick to your mind that you felt were going to have an impactful year as a member of the Giants?
Yeah, without a doubt, when I think back to spring training, the guys who stood out to me, who I thought, okay, these are upgrades. These are guys who are clearly going to have an increased level of production compared to the people that they were replacing. And that's Kevin Gossman and Drew Smiley. And I know that
Wow.
consistency has always been an issue for both of those pitchers, and that putting things together on a long, consistent basis has never really been their strong suit. But Smiley's a few years removed from Tommy John surgery. He looked a whole lot better. There was more life to his fastball and breaking ball. And Kevin Gossman simply simplified things on the mound. The Giants coaching staff really felt that they could unlock some things with him. And I was so impressed with his spring training starts, because there is something to that fastball that makes it hard to hit. I don't know if it's the spin rate. I don't know if it's deception in his windup. But when you pair that with his splitter, which has got to be a top 10% pitch in baseball, I mean, that thing is electric.
Right.
So I thought that those two guys, whether the Giants were going to use them in 5 or 6 inning stints or hope to have them end up being front of the rotation guys, I thought both of them were poised for big years.
Yeah, and that's awesome to hear. And I feel like as Giants fans, we're used to have those solid arms come and have solid starts and make an impact in that way. Not so much outside of Barry Bonds, just rake the baseball. That's not what we're used to as Giants fans. And so I believe that could have made a huge impact. And like you said, those are two guys that could have stood out and hopefully they keep that things going even in an expected shorter season. And I feel like this what we talk about next is going to come up important on a shorter season. Do you think it's going to have a bigger impact on guys like Ramos or Bart? Because I know Bart was a guy a lot of fans wanted to see early in the season. Some may have been pushing it, but some wanted to see him opening day.
Yeah, Leo, without a doubt, the coronavirus situation and the fact that there could be Major League Baseball and no minor league baseball, to me, that just puts Joey Bart on the roster. I know there's going to be debate about it. I know people are going to say, oh, Farhan has such a tough decision on his hands. And to me, it's like the easiest decision in the world. Do you waste Joey Bart's time over in minor league camp and doing some scrimmage games if they're able to do that? Or do you put him on a big league field, get him in a Giants uniform, and have him serve as your designated hitter? Have him give Buster Posey a breather once in a while? Absolutely. You take advantage of the talent you have. And it would not shock me if the Giants played this season and Joey Bart was on the roster. If by the end of the year, Joey Bart was hitting like third or fourth in the
Right.
lineup, because that's the kind of talent that he has. That's the kind of bat that the Giants are lacking. And I know that there will be struggles, but I say put Bart on the roster. And here's where I really get extreme. I say put Sean Jelly on the roster. I say put Elliot Ramos on the roster. And I know that most of my fellow writers and I think a lot of fans would disagree with this, but if there's no minor league baseball, I put Hunter Bishop on the roster. I think he's good enough to be a defensive replacement. Rosters are going to be expanded. You get him 3 or 4 at bats a week, and you say, okay, this was not a lost year for his development. He was around big league guys. First off, he's the single best athlete the Giants have from top to
Right.
bottom that I've seen. And so you just don't waste talent like that when the season shortened, when there's no minor league season. Just put them on the roster and see what happens.
Awesome. And what you touched on is expanded rosters. Would you assume or maybe expect something to be like a 40-man roster playing in a shorter season?
Absolutely. I think that that's the way you have to do it. If they're going to do double headers, if they're going to go 7 straight days with no off days, and if they're going to condense the calendar to try and fit as many games in as possible, 100%. You've got to have a situation built in where these guys are able to take breathers. And you've also got to have a situation built in for, a positive test or two here or there. I think that
Right.
if there's widespread positive tests around the league, then they'll shut it down. But if there's one or two and a guy has to go into quarantine for 14 days, I think that Major League Baseball will probably develop a contingency plan there. But I think that you've got to be prepared in every way possible to build your backups, build your depth, and make sure that you're maximizing opportunities for the guys who are going to be your future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe I've heard reports that league-wide DH would be across, and I feel like that would help a guy like Joey Bart
Oh,
as
yeah.
far as just saying, okay, we're going to go ahead and have him on the MLB roster now because he could play first, he could play catcher, he could DH. There's 3 open positions for him now rather than just one or even double headers. Buster Posey's not going to catch both games, and I don't think there was one guy who just other than Joey Bart solidified themselves as that second backup catcher spot. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Regardless, there has to be 3 catchers in this shorter season. So we'll see what Farhan decides to do. I'm definitely on board with you with bringing up Joey Bart. He's played college ball. He's played a couple years in the minors. I believe he would be ready to go now. And touching on that, as far as yesterday, a report came down that the owners agreed to begin the season in July in their respected home stadiums without fans. Have you spoken with any of the players, maybe just a couple text messages, to see how they felt about this? Is there some guys that just want to get the season started now, or is there some guys that want to take a further look still?
So it's interesting, Leo, because I'm on furlough. I am actually not doing that, even though some journalists might opt to. You're allowed to do whatever you want, but I looked at it as my news organization telling me to go away. So I was definitely not trying to work and
Right.
trying to exhaust my resources. And the first day I come
True.
back, I'll check in with them and take the temperature and see. I'll check in with certain players who I've got good relationships with and see what they're thinking, see what their families are thinking on the matter, because it definitely is a big health and safety issue. And I know that some have been reluctant to talk until this is sorted out by the union. They've got a lot of trust. They've got a lot of faith in the MLB Players Union. And so they want to see players work collectively without
Right.
leaking things. And I do respect that process as well.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great to hear. It'll be interesting once everything does get into fruition to see what some of the players come out and say about it.
Yeah. One thing I do want to add back to the point that you were talking about the Giants having some of their prospects on the field, particularly Joey Bart. Let's say the DH comes to the National League. The Giants are in a position where they don't need to call it the designated hitter. They can call it the development hitter, and it can be a
Right.
prospect each day. It could be Joey Bart. It could be Elliot Ramos. It could be Hunter Bishop. It could be Jalen Davis. Just make that your development hitter and use one lineup spot each day for that guy to get reps. I think that there's no downside to that. Maybe you're losing a little bit of a competitive edge, but
Hmm.
in an 80 game season, an 82 game season, I think you can make some sacrifices.
Yeah, I love that idea of development hitter. As far as a guy like Joey Bart, who would normally help call games behind the plate, hey, you're here to develop. Think
Mhm.
certain circumstances happen. You're gonna be our DH this game. Focus solely on hitting. Here goes the analytics on the pitcher. Go ahead and study him. Don't worry about the behind the plate duties. And same with the other positions on the field because they gotta shift certain ways on certain batters or
Yeah.
just with fielding overall, what comes along with it. I love that idea, and I would stand by that behind it 100%.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
No, it's great, especially with all the young talent the Giants
Mhm.
have for sure, 100%.
Yeah. And what do fans want to see? Not just baseball, they want to see excitement. I mean, you're talking about a future where they'll be excited about just getting things back to normal and being able to attend games. What if you get a glimpse of the talent that's going to make that so special? The talent that's going to be your building blocks for the future. I just think that to me, it's a no brainer. And I know that there's a reason I'm not a baseball executive and there's a reason that I'm not sitting in front offices, but
One day,
I do definitely understand the fans' point of view.
yeah, one day you'll be there. It'll
I don't
happen.
necessarily think that anyone's rooting for that.
Make the transition.
Yeah.
So I know you kind of talked about it a little bit. I'm sure you have seen the rumor that started with the tweet by former big leaguer pitcher Trevor Plouffe that spring training, essentially spring training number 2, would take place mid-June, and then the season would start around the 4th of July. Have you heard the same? I know you said on furlough you don't want to exhaust your resources, but has anybody reached out to you, or are you kind of hearing some of the same words on a
I
potential
did. I
start?
did actually have a chance encounter with a Giants assistant coach that lives in my neighborhood, and we were both out for a run. And the assistant coach hinted that that was what they expected to hear. And so this was a few days ago, and we had a nice chat. And yeah, the assistant coach essentially told me, they expect to know about spring training. They expect to be going back to Arizona for that. There was still some uncertainty, but I know that Gabe Kapler's been quarantining down in Arizona. That I think if things got back up and running, that he would prefer to run operations from Scottsdale. I think that Arizona making the call on Tuesday to announce that they'll be open for business for professional sports teams definitely eases that. I don't think it
Hmm.
eases everything for the league, but it definitely eases them in terms of having a place to
Right.
conduct business. So yeah, I do think that the dates that Trevor Plouffe tweeted that Ken Rosenthal and Evan Drellick have both reported, I do think that those are pretty realistic targets right now. And who knows, there will be setbacks, there will be things that change, but I think that for baseball to stay relevant, they've got to stick closely to this plan.
Yeah. Uh, Obviously, the MJ documentary helps baseball to stay relevant. They're like, wow, the greatest basketball player of all time quit to go play some baseball. But
Let's
yeah,
go play in the Arizona Fall League, huh?
right, yeah. So, but hearing what you said gets me excited. I'm like, oh God, I know we're in early May, but if we could just see some MLB baseball, even if it's a spring training take 2, mid-June, that would be fantastic. And I think it would be great for everybody around to start seeing some live sports again, and rather than NBC re-showing Giants games.
You mean to tell me that the MLB The Show virtual games aren't doing it for you?
Well, Hunter Pence won a couple games and maybe,
That's true.
but
That's true.
I would
Yeah.
prefer to play some games myself rather than sit there
Yeah.
and watch a computer.
Yeah. I give them a lot of credit though. It's creative.
Absolutely.
They've definitely been more creative than the other national networks.
Hey, people were saying they wanted players on the field, so they try to find it somehow,
Yeah, exactly.
video game or not.
Yeah.
So perfect. Well, Kerry, I would like to thank you for your time. And I know you're busy with everything going on. Real quick, I know we have a couple minutes. I believe you're doing something that you're going to go ahead and launch for the people next week, right?
Yeah, so you're the first person I have told this to, but the cat's out of the bag because I've had to interview so many people for this project.
Right.
I'm launching a sports writing course called Your Future in Sports Writing. And essentially, it is designed to help people develop their sports writing skills, develop their reporting skills, and ultimately get and land their next job in sports writing. And so, whether you're starting as an independent publisher who just has a curiosity and an interest in sports writing, whether you're a high school student looking at sports writing as a potential career, whether you're a college graduate looking for your first job, my goal is to create a course that teaches you what you won't learn in college, what you won't learn in the classroom. And it's really practical advice from 20 to 25 journalists who are young, who are up and coming in the industry, and who've been really, really generous with their time. So I'm really looking forward to launching that course. It'll be available on teachable.com, but I'll be spreading it through my social media channels and making sure that everyone who wants to take the course will have an opportunity to do so.
That's awesome. I can't wait to take a look at that. And I'll go ahead and spread it across my media channels as well. Definitely,
Awesome.
I wish you the best of luck in that. And thank you for taking the time and speaking with me today.
Thanks so much, Leo. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Have a great one.